Hi everyone, my name is Eva. I'm a student at Penn State University and I am so excited to be partnering with Washington Crossing Historic Park to bring you along on a virtual historic adventure. Today, we've spent a lot of time talking, thinking, and learning about George Washington. When we think of George Washington, we think of the famous war general, the guy who crossed the Delaware River, and the first president of the United States. George Washington was all of those things, but he was also a very successful gardener and farmer. That's right. At his home, Mount Vernon, which is located on the Potomac River in Alexandria, Virginia, George Washington had a huge garden of his own. And that was because back in the 1770s, a lot of people had to grow their own food. This is a photo of one of the many gardens at George Washington's home in Mount Vernon. This is referred to as the upper garden. And I know what you're probably thinking. This doesn't look very practical. Where are all the fruits and vegetables? And you're right. This garden instead is meant to show off the wealth of the Washington family for all of their visitors. This is the lower garden at Mount Vernon. It looks a little bit more like a traditional garden that we might see today, and that's because this is where the bulk of the vegetables for the Mount Vernon estate were grown. They also grew herbs, spices, and some plants that could be used for medicinal purposes. Martha Washington, George's wife, oversaw this garden regularly. She would often take a lot of the produce and can it or preserve it to last over the long winter months when many things couldn't grow. There are also a number of historic gardens at the Washington Crossing Historic Park. This garden, the Hibbs House Kitchen Garden, reflects plants that would have been grown in Bucks County in the 1770s. A kitchen garden refers to a garden that includes everything a family might need, from herbs to spices to plants that can be used in medicine, cooking, and baking. All of this would be right outside of their door. Another historic garden in the park is the Thompson Neely Farmstead Garden. This house and garden looks just as it might have in the midst of the Revolutionary War. It grew vegetables and some herbs that could be used to make medicine. Now that we've learned a little bit more about early American gardens, let's start a garden of our own. As we get set up, we're first going to use some recycled newspaper to cover up and protect our work area, since this activity may get a little messy. Then we're going to take our recycled egg carton, using a pair of scissors, and very carefully cut down the middle seam. You can also ask an adult to help you with this step. The bottom of the egg carton fits perfectly into the top, which we will use as a tray. Next, carefully take a sharpened pencil and poke one hole in the bottom of each of the egg carton cups. This part is also a little tricky, so please feel free to ask an adult to help you with this step. Once all of the holes have been poked, return the bottom half to the tray and get ready to add some small pebbles. Now we're talking really small here. I found these right outside in my garden, and we're going to add these to the bottom of each of the cups. This will help with the drainage. Once we've filled each of our cups with 2 or 3 small pebbles, we're going to move on to adding some soil. Regular potting soil should do just fine. We're going to go ahead and fill each one of the cups, about 3/4 of the way full, with potting soil. This can get a little bit messy, which is why we're using our newspaper. If it's easier, you could also use a tablespoon to carefully fill each one of these cups, covering the drainage hole that we've created and the few pebbles that we've added to each one of the cups. Make sure that each cup is about as evenly filled as it can be. Next up comes the seeds, and you can see that we have 3 different kinds. First are some pumpkin seeds. These are best to plant in the late spring and into the early summer. We also have some very tiny broccoli rabe seeds. These are best to plant just after the first frost in the spring. The ones I'm going to be using today are some lettuce seeds. These do pretty well in cooler weather, and you can at least start them inside before transplanting them in the spring. Look how small they are. Now we're going to move on to actually planting our seeds. Take your pencil, flip it over, and use the eraser end to create small holes in each of the individual egg cups. Add about 2 to 3 seeds per cup and gently cover the seeds up with the soil. Go ahead and repeat this process until each and every one of the cups is full. You can use different seeds for different cups if you prefer. Once you've covered up every seed and finished planting, go ahead and take some water. Water each and every seed cup, soaking it thoroughly and evenly. You're going to want to repeat this process every 2 to 3 days, or as soon as you notice the soil drying out. Then, safely move your entire tray to a windowsill, where the seeds will stay warm and receive light over the course of the next couple of weeks. Alrighty friends, so now that we have taken our time very carefully planting and watering each and every seed, we're going to find a safe space for it on a windowsill where it will get some sunlight and stay warm over the next couple of weeks. We also have to take the very important step of patiently waiting and occasionally watering our new little seeds. You probably won't wake up tomorrow morning to find all of them sprouting. In fact, it might take a couple days or even a couple weeks, but all good things are worth the wait. I also want you to water your plants with just a little bit of water every 2 to 3 days when you notice that the top of the soil is getting dry. You might think to yourself, well, this is a really long process for a plant that might not even give me any food. And that's very true. That same thought is the thought that a lot of early Americans, maybe even George Washington himself, had when they were planting their crops for the season. It's always a hit or miss chance. Maybe you plant something, maybe it works, and maybe it doesn't. But it's a very important aspect of early American life. In fact, it's a very important aspect of life even today. When we think there are thousands of farmers who plant a lot of fruits and vegetables that we get to eat when we just go to the grocery store. So I implore you, next time that you open your refrigerator or take a trip to your local grocery store, when you walk down an aisle or look on a shelf, try to count how many things started with just a very single seed. I bet the number will blow your mind, and it will hopefully give you even more appreciation for the things that we eat. Thank you for joining us as we learn to garden like George on this virtual historic adventure. We hope you enjoy the rest of our activities, and above all, never stop exploring. Thank you.